Dere ser agendaen på skjermen, regner jeg med. Og den som i innkallingen. Vi skal høre masse forskjellig fra buildingSMART International om alle de forskjellige standardene, inklusiv IFC5 eller IFC-X, som de prøver å kalle det nå. Da var det slik at Evandro skulle fortelle om dette. Han måtte plutselig ut og fly. Så Evandro og jeg hadde vårt eget lille møte i går, som vi har tatt opp, så det blir en slags teipa live-sak med Evandro. Og det blir den første timen, så alle de første kulepunktene her, eller altså agendapunkt 2, 3 og 4, blir en recording som jeg skal sette i gang straks. Og så kommer selve juvelen i krona til slutt, BIM for nybegynnere. En introduksjonssak som Steen har laget, med litt hjelp av Frode og meg, men det er Steen som er hovedforfatteren bak det. Så han skal presentere den. Og det skal ut på høring, sånn at man kan få feedback og lage en enda bedre versjon. Så det tenkt, vil jo Sten fortelle mer om, men det tenkt som en slags fin introduksjon for nybegynnere innenfor IFC, før de liksom dive ned i de mer detaljene. Bare kort hva vi snakket om på forrige møte. Da var det, for de som er interessert, så kan du gå tilbake da og se på innspillingen derfra. Da var det om IDS. Det var Bane Nor har jo en løsning som heter KIM, hvor de bruker IDS-filer for å validere de filene de får inn. Bane Nor krever jo nå IFC 4.3. Og da var Daniel der og fortalte om hvordan dette fungerer hos dem, fordeler, utfordringer og så videre. Veldig interessant. Så det var liksom den praktiske saken av det. Og så var det den teoretiske, for dette jo teknisk domene, så vi må jo ha litt tech-nerding. Og da fikk vi inn Stefan Joud, som nå har et litt privatfirma, men har jobbet i universitetet i München i mange år. Og han har skrevet et paper om fordeler og ulemper mellom IDS, MVD XML og Gherkin som valideringsspråkformater. Og gjennomgikk noen fordeler og ulemper med det forskjellige. MVD var jo det som har vært brukt i buildingSMART frem til nå, og fremdeles i bruk som validering og sertifiseringsgrunnlag. IDS ganske nytt, og det alltid litt diskusjon, skal IDS overta for MVD, men MVD har noen aspekter som IDS ikke har, noen funksjonalitet, kapabiliteter. Og Gherkin et mer generelt IT-valideringsspråk. Så det var også en veldig interessant gjennomgang. For de som er interessert kan laste ned fra boks og se på presentasjonen. Da tror jeg prøver å sette i gang intervjuet med Evandro, som jeg hadde i går ettermiddag. Vi testet jo på forhånd, Torkel, at lyden skulle funke, men hvis det mot formodning ikke blir lyd nå, så får du skrike ut.
Ja.
Da setter vi i gang. Ok, welcome Evandro. Sorry that you couldn't attend the meeting, but we record this beforehand on Monday. So maybe we should start with you presenting yourself. I don't know if everyone on the call here know exactly which role you have and who you are. And then we take it from there.
Sure. Thanks again, Erik, and thanks everybody for having me. And sorry I couldn't make it, but I had the last minute flight change, unfortunately, and I will be flying at the time of your meeting tomorrow. And thanks, Erik, for setting this up. Of course, my name is Evandro Alfieri. I'm with buildingSMART International. I wear different hats inside buildingSMART. That's probably useful for this group and this presentation. I'm first of all coordinating the technical domain. That's why I'm also able to give you some update on the technical domain activities. My role in buildingSMART is delivery director. I'm responsible for many things like the IFC validation service that we're going to cover that. I'm the product manager for that tool. Software certification is also something I'm dealing with, and it's related to the IFC validation service. I'm leading the IFC Implementers Forum, which is the group of vendors that come together and discuss the challenges of implementing IFC. And I'm the BSI liaison officer for ISO, and probably this is also important for some of the things that I'm going to mention today related to the upcoming ISO standards. I think I'll leave it at that, because otherwise it's boring and it's mainly about me. And because this is a recorded video, and I know that it's pretty boring to watch someone talking for too much, I'll probably fly very high and give an overview on the different topic that Jan-Erik has requested. And maybe we can have an exchange, a virtual exchange. Maybe Jan-Erik can ask questions, and we can go deep in the different topics that he believes might interest this group. If that's okay, so I will fly very high. I'm gonna use some of the slides that I'm preparing for Porto, so you are lucky you're gonna have a preview of the slides in Porto. Let me start right away. I'm gonna cover some of the items that you see on the left. So IFC for the 3 and 4, IFCX or IFC5, depends how we want to call it. I have a preference, but I'll cover that later. IDS is also something that you were interested. BCF, if you don't have any questions, we might skip that for the sake of time. Validation, certification, and software certification, we're going to cover that. bSDD, I don't remember if it's interesting for you now. Otherwise, we can cover that. Or maybe you can ask questions directly to Arthur, that he might be able to join the last half an hour of your meeting tomorrow. And then maybe something about ISO and work and BSI. And I know that Jan-Erik requested some suggestions on technical sessions during the summit. So we'll try to cover all of this. Let's see how long it takes. So you can see testing slides ahead of the summit is nice. Okay. On IFC 4.3, I think there's nothing new, meaning this is the latest standard. You should be all aware of this. It's published since 2024. We still do fixings of typos and example every now and then. And the IFC Global Software Certification and Verification for this standard is available for the export and soon available for import. We are finalizing the last test data, but I will cover these in more detail when we touch the global software certification. The standard is, the software certification program more in general is available on this platform. You can go to the link or scan the QR code, and you will see how we do the different type of software certification. But again, I'll cover these later. I want to focus mainly on IFC 4.4, which is the latest update.
But just a question to IFC 4.3 documentation. You are updating the online documentation on a regular basis, aren't you?
Yes, that's what I meant with editorial clarification. So when we find typos and examples, and actually the community, because now with this, since 4 years now, 5, we have this platform for creating and maintaining the documentation that is based on GitHub, and people can propose, find issues and changes or request more examples. And so if they are in scope of what we can do, because remember, this is also an ISO standard, so we can't change everything. But typos and small fixes and examples and clarifications, we can't do that. So thanks to this platform, we can track all the changes and execute the changes and improve the live documentation. And in the next ISO update, because we are tracking everything and we know the difference, we're going to use the improved baseline instead of the original one. Okay, IFC 4.4. So there's been a decision to update the 4.3 standard. The working title is 4.4. We imagine that it's going to be the one that is going to be chosen. We are going to republish the standard. In ISO terminology, this means canceling and replacing the existing standard. So 4.3 will be canceled at ISO, and will be published a new one. As you know, ISO cannot have multiple versions of the same standard, so they need to withdraw or cancel one and replacing it with a new one. We are working with ISO since May last year to understand the procedures and the timeline and the best approach. We've opted for the 24-month track plus Vienna agreement. So this is to give you an idea of the timelines of the timeline. So the question that I usually get is, when is IFC 4.4 going to be published by ISO? It's a very difficult to answer questions because there are many dependencies within buildingSMART and in ISO. As you know, this is not a one process, but there are two processes that needs to be aligned and synchronized. There is some preparation work that we need to do inside buildingSMART, and this is what we are doing now. So we are planning the submission to ISO, and it has a certain ISO requirements in terms of packaging and submissions form and everything. And so these might take some months, and I'm intentionally vague because we are in this very moment. We are estimating the amount of time needed for the preparation to go to ISO. And this preparation is not, it's mainly an integration work. So probably I'm gonna skip a few slides ahead just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So the IFC 4.3 will be replaced, as I said, by these IFC 4.4. And the work that we are doing to prepare the submission to ISO is putting together, integrating different sources. So we have the work that has been done by the IFC for tunnel project. So the additions that they have suggested and the modifications to the existing standard. But we also have some comments from ISO from the previous cycle that we postponed. And so we need to process them now. This was done in agreement with ISO, of course. And then there are issues identified by the community and the software vendors and implementers, basically anyone that worked in the standard in the last 2 years. They've been creating issues in GitHub. So these are the three main sources. Probably there are some other sources, minor work that we are trying to understand at the moment, because we are now in this phase of understanding the scope of the input that needs to be integrated. Once this is clear, we're going to put a plan before the standards committee, which is the highest committee in buildingSMART. They will have to vote for the approval of the plan to integrate everything and go to ISO. This is to say that there is some work needed in buildingSMART to consolidate and integrate. This work will be done centrally by buildingSMART Management Office in coordination with all the domains, all the chapters, all the stakeholders, all the committees of buildingSMART. So they will all contribute. We're going to use the GitHub platform as always, so it's going to be public and transparent for everybody to contribute. But it's going to be coordinated, of course, centrally, as we did in the past with 4.3. So this is the integration work, and this integration work can last some months, and the standards committee will have to vote. The vote of the standard committee takes 3 months, and then after that, we have the green light to proceed with the work. Most likely, we will also work in parallel to speed up some work. And when the conclusion of the preparation work with buildingSMART is the submission to ISO. So going back to the timeline, the answer, it's difficult because there is this preparation work, then we submit the package to ISO, this new work item. ISO has 3 months of balloting, and after these 3 months, the clock starts, and from there are 24 months. So this is also why it's difficult at this point to give a date. For sure, we can provide a more reliable and realistic date as soon as we submit the work item to ISO, because from there, the timeline is very automatic and rigid. This was a lot of information on processes and voting and committees on buildingSMART, so I want to pause for a second to see if at least Jan-Erik has questions.
Yeah, so we are talking about 2028, 2029, and probably ish.
Of course, this doesn't prevent, for example, buildingSMART to start producing example files, working with vendors. So remember also what we did in 4.3. We were working with the implementers forum, with you, for example, and other colleagues, well before the standard was approved by ISO. I remember we started working on the implementers forum at least in 2022, and the 4.3 standard was published in 24. So for at least 2 years, we worked in parallel with ISO inside buildingSMART to help vendors to implement the standard, so that when the standard is published, you don't start from scratch. You already have some experience in implementing the standards. And if we have the resources to do that as buildingSMART, we will, of course, we would like to do the same this time.
And another question is, you said that IFC 4.3 should be replaced. And of course, it's a lot of serious projects files out there for real projects in IFC 4.3. So a lot of stakeholders will probably don't like that it's not valid anymore.
I wouldn't say that's a good comment, and probably this is where we need to be clear. IFC 4.3 is and remain a buildingSMART standard, like 2x3 and 4. So, and other standards produced in the past. So buildingSMART in the past was always maintaining all the standards, and the publications are out there. And because IFC 4.4 must be 100% compatible with 4.3, these shouldn't create any problem with software vendors that are implementing 4.3 and they want to implement 4.4. And 4.3 is and remain a valid IFC file format. Simply, there is this requirement from ISO that they can only have one version at a time. And so if we want to publish a new one, we need to withdraw they need to withdraw the existing one. We as buildingSMART, we can maintain it in our database, and we will maintain it as it is at the time of the creation of 4.4. Of course, because IFC 4.4 will also fix some of the problem of 4.3. Yeah, it's a direct consequence that that part will also be different.
And is something discarded in IFC 4.4 that is in IFC 4.3? Will it be any issues with stuff that is removed?
You mean removed from 4.3?
Yeah, it's always because it should be an archive format, right? IFC.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's always questions if you take away something between the versions of the IFC standard.
Very good question. So no, this is not possible because of the ISO compatibility policy of IFC. So because it's a minor update, so 4.4 is a minor update to 4.3. 4.4 cannot remove, delete, for example, part of the schema. IFC 4.4 can deprecate some part of the schema, but deprecation doesn't mean removal. If you check the IFC schema, you will find that inside the schema there are things that are there since IFC 2. So they are deprecated in the documentation, meaning that the usage is discouraged in the 4.4 version, and usually the 4.4 version provides an alternative for the things that have been deprecated, but technically they remain part of the schema. And this is precisely for compatibility reasons. So someone implementing 4.4 or 4.3 shouldn't have any problem in reading each other's data. When something is new and you are not aware of it, you simply ignore that. But you can't delete something that exists in the previous schema. For doing that, you need a major update.
Good. So to sum up, 2028 to 2029, sometime it will be IFC 4.4, and then there will be no IFC 4.3 ISO standard, but it will be an IFC 4.3 buildingSMART international standard, right?
Correct. And the status of the IFC 4.3 standard at buildingSMART is not decided yet. So we will have to decide what's going to be the status, if it's still existing and published but withdrawn, or maintained as an official standard. This is something that has not been decided yet.
Good. Then I think I have got answers on all my questions.
Okay.
The rest of the audience, they have to wait for tomorrow to ask questions.
Yeah, you can. You can reach out to me, or if you're coming to Porto, we can. Again, I'm going to deliver a similar update. We can talk Porto.
Very good.
Then I have my next slides will be on IFC5, but in your timeline, it was the last topic. Do you want me to cover first IDS, validation, and certification?
Just follow your presentation. That's fine.
So IFCX, which is the name we are considering using for this activity that people know as IFC5. This is very unofficial, so I still have to consult with the rest of the group about these name changes. And as you know, naming is always difficult, especially in buildingSMART. But we have seen in the last year and months that the IFC5 name, and it's only really a name, and it's only a communication issue, is creating a lot of misconception and misunderstanding. And the reason seems stupid, but it's something we tried to address, but we couldn't fix that. And the problem is that 5 is bigger than 4. And so we tried really hard to change, to explain what's behind the idea of IFC5, that this is an umbrella term that is used to, let's say, design and create the new technology. But it's an impossible task, because in people's mind, the iPhone 18 is better than 17. So this brings all sorts of speculations and misunderstanding, like IFC5 is bigger than 4. There are more concepts. It's not the case. There is a semantic continuity. It's only modularization and split between technology and domain semantics. But so it's not. There's no more things, more domain semantics in that. IFC5 is better than 4. No, it's not like an iPhone. They're different. Same content, different technologies. So this creates an impossible discussion. Also, software implementers told us that it's really difficult to explain to their users, because as soon as there is a version, version 2 of a document replaces the version 1 of a document. And again, this is not the case. 5 is not replacing 4. So there is a lot of misconception and a hard time that we're having, just because 5 is bigger than 4. And so this is why we went for the something that is actually already used in the repository where the people are developing the new technology, which is X. The IFCX is the terminology and even the file format and exchange mechanisms that we are using for testing the API and everything that is currently in progress in the working group of IFCX. So this is something that probably we will push for. So this renaming to help people understanding what really this effort is about. It's not about replacing, it's not about fighting, it's not better, it's not more content, it's simply another technology, because in one sentence, IFCX is meant to address this standardization of APIs for BIM data workflows. So something that the industry is strongly asking for a long time. To give you an idea where we are in terms of timeline, the DPP, sorry for all the acronyms, the draft project plan for the IFCX work was submitted in August 25 to the Standards Committee. They've provided some comments, and we have updated the plan, and we turned that into a final project plan that is now under review by other committees in buildingSMART, and hopefully it will soon go to vote to the Standards Committee, which is, as I say, the highest committee and the last committee that is voting on the project to make it start officially. So hopefully in, let's say, even next month, if all the reviews are positive, next month we can have a Standards Committee vote. As I said, it takes 3 months. So during these 3 months, we will still do some preparation, but then the official starting date is 3 months. Starting date of the project is 3 months from the Standards Committee vote. The project is titled IFCX Core and Architecture, because we are not, again, this is another misconception, IFC5 will not be, IFCX will not be done in one day, in one go. Because of this modularization approach, first we will tackle the core and the technology shifts, and then in parallel or after, we can start with all the other modules. So the project that we are talking about, that is going through votes and reviews, is only about the core module and the overall architecture to guide all the other modules. And this project is expected to last 12 months.
Could you say a few words about what is the core compared to the other modules?
Let me see if I have a slide on that. Otherwise, I'll improvise. This is something that I probably already mentioned. So another misconception or rumors that are circulating: no, buildingSMART is not dropping any standard. buildingSMART is maintaining all of its standard. It's our mission. We have to do it. So buildingSMART will work on the new technology, but also maintaining the existing one. So yeah, please ignore any other rumors. We are doing, and we've always been doing, this project in compliance with the existing BSI process, which is also under review. So we will do our best to comply to the new process, but until there is a new process, we are following the existing one. And the community is engaged in this project. So if you're interested in IFCX, you already know that there is an open GitHub repository. We are doing sessions during the summit, during the implementers assembly. The project will do its own expert panels as required by the processes. And basically every time that we'll have the chance to meet people, including meetings like this one we're having, we are going to share knowledge and get input. But this is to say there are many channels you can use to provide input. Yeah, they've always been active and they will always be active. And of course, we are also inviting ISO and SEN experts to our meetings to facilitate this transition. This is a very poor slide on this modularization. And this is because the modularization, so the different parts, are really subject to the project. So the project is also defining more or less how these parts will look like. So this is a very high level idea. So trying to convey this idea that before the standard was and is always created as one monolithic thing. And IFCX, the big shift of IFCX is not new semantics, is really a split between the technology and the semantics. So in the technology, we have at least two main blocks, two areas at the moment. So the core modules and the core extensions. And core modules can be the general principles, so what IFCX is and how to use it, but also the APIs, because as I mentioned, this is an API-driven type of change. And then because the core is minimal, and we would like to keep it minimal so that everybody can implement it very quickly without too much of a threshold, the other modules can be extensions. So for example, geometry might be a very basic geometry in the core that allows to do 80% of the use cases, but then there might be extensions of the core module, for example, on procedural geometry or issue tracking like VCF or requirements like IDS. All those things were conceived 5 years ago precisely to fit in this ecosystem. So this is really the design and the idea that was grounded in the technical roadmap 6 years ago, coming to a conclusion. So now you see why all these bSDD for semantic and linked data exist. It's because of creating this ecosystem of standards that are developed in buildingSMART. And then there are the semantic domains, the main semantics modules that will likely be something specific to building, rail, tunnel, some shared and common entities. I'm sure that will be a module on those things. But again, this is something that will change 20 times. So this is just the starting assumptions of the project. And during the project, there is a specific work package to work with ISO and SEN, because they also have an opinion on these modules, because each of those modules will become an ISO part. So we have regular meetings with them to understand the dependencies and the implication of these things. But this is to say, in here, you should also see an idea for strengthening building smart domains so that they can also become owner of a specific part of the ISO standard. So this is this is the idea. And yeah, probably also we're going to use the Porto Summit to ask people if they're interested in this type of parallel work on semantics, while the technical domain focus on the technological shift. I think that's already quite some information on IFC-X. I don't know if you have specific questions.
Yeah, timeline.
Timeline, let me see.
Any ideas on, you said 12 months.
Yeah, so
what's after 12 months there?
Yeah, good question. So IFC-X is also trying to take a different approach with ISO. So before we had this idea, we think of creating a standard with, so for the 3 and for the 4 are done in a similar way. So we do the standards within buildingSMART, then we throw it over the fence to ISO. When it sometimes goes well, sometimes we get 600 comments, like with the IFC for the 3. And then we need to rush to resolve those comments in a short amount of time. Otherwise, the entire ISO process gets cancelled. So that was the risk in the past. So we think with both ISO and buildingSMART, we think this is not a very efficient use of our resources, and we would like to align, synchronize our processes better to reduce the duplication of work and the wasted resources and the rework needed. So the idea with IFC5 is that because the core is small, we are confident, very confident, that we can conclude the work in 9 months of the IFC-X core. And then, because I said that the project is 12, the last 3 months are, remember, the 3 months of voting for the standards committee. So we're going to include the standards committee review while the project is still active, so that we have the team and the people available to fix the standard while we're getting comments from the SC. So in 12 months, we should be able to vote a working draft. That's the status of the standard at the end of these 12 months. And this working draft is something that is going to be injected in the ISO process as a working draft, meaning very early in the process of ISO and not too late. And from that moment, as always, because it's a Vienna agreement, so we're targeting joint publication of ISO and SEN, it's going to be 24 months maximum. This is always maximum duration. We believe that because it's a core and it's a small standard, ISO and SEN will not use all the 24 months for reviewing something that is very little, but this is just let's say wishful thinking. We have no confirmation of this yet. So 12 months for the standards to be let's say usable and approved by buildingSMART, and another 24 maximum for it to be available as an ISO standard. Also, but don't forget what we said here. So if people and users wants to use the standards in, let's say, in real projects in real life, there's also the need that domains starts their work on semantics in parallel. Because otherwise, I mean, if the technology is available and the API is available, but there is no content to exchange, then it's difficult also for software implementers to adopt the standard. So there is probably also the need for buildingSMART to speed up the work on the domain semantics.
Yeah, so there are some years ahead before this is an ISO standard at least, but maybe just 1.5 years before it's testable, or it's testable now, isn't it?
Yeah, at the moment there is a prototype that is testable, but the work of the project, once will be approved, is exactly to take this prototype and validate all the assumptions, because for creating the prototype, the group has made a lot of assumptions, so we need to validate all the assumptions. Some things will be confirmed and decided. Some other things will be changed. So it is testable. I know that there are 2,000 people that took the course. There are people posting on LinkedIn and GitHub every day some examples. We are very confident of one thing: the implementation of this technology is taking people 3 or 4 days or a week instead of months or years. So at least this is a positive result. So we are in a good trajectory. We are in the trajectory of allowing vendors to implement their standards easily and quicker.
Are there any large differences between the version in the course and what you have come to after the last summit, Implementation Forum Summit?
And no, as I said, because the project is now under review, and in theory we are not even officially starting. We are now only collecting the items to discuss and the things that we would like to revisit. But there's not been any changes compared to what you see on the course. So nothing yet. Some people
the main principles are the same. The main thinking is about the same.
Still. Yes. But again, it's the job of the project to confirm or challenge these assumptions. So I know that there are people experimenting with the APIs based on the current alpha prototype, but these are, let's say, experiments that the community is doing. Simply because there is a prototype.
Good, then I think we are okay informed about IFC-X.
Yeah, but let me tell you this: if you think you're still missing some information or there are open questions, it's hopefully it's not only because I was not clear, but it's because some answers still do not exist. So I want to stress this point. IFC 4.4 and 4.3, I can be more confident because these things are already happening and real, while IFC-X is a project that is about to start, and many open questions will be answered by the project. So don't worry if you still have many open questions, because that's normal in this stage.
And just one small question. I see that it's a dotted line around IFC 4.4, but the idea is that IFC-X should have the domain model from IFC 4.4, is it?
Yeah, exactly. That's why the arrows are branching from 4.4 and not 4.3, because 4.4 will add some domain semantics, and IFC-X will have to include that, absolutely. But this is one of the benefits of the modules. You see, we are already benefiting from these. We can start working on the core modules on the technology, and then IFC 4.4 can happen in parallel, because there is no problem, there's no dependency. The only dependency is with the future tunnel module, for example, of the domain semantics. So working on the core technology has no dependency with the 4.4 content.
Super.
Okay, I don't know, I'm probably taking more time than you hoped for, so I'm gonna, the rest is relatively shorter and easier. So on IDS, as you know, IDS 1.0 is a final standard since June 24. There is some work ongoing to finalize the 1.0 documentation, so mainly updating some tests and examples. So there are 37 issues still to be processed, but the standard is unchanged. It's only work on the documentation. IDS 1.1, it's in my slides because there is a technical domain working group that is investigating the possibility of a minor update that we called for now IDS 1.1, fully backward compatible, and it's based on a list of 18 open issues. And these are either, let's say, fixes on the previous version or extended capabilities of IDS. At the moment, this is just an interest from a working group. There is no activity yet. So again, per BSI processes, we will need to create an activity first and then engage the community and so on. The plan...
Do you have some examples of the improved capabilities there? Or?
No, I think the answer is you have to check out these 18 open issues. It's a working group coordinated by Arthur, so maybe he knows more about these 18 issues. But if I say anything, I'll probably gonna say something stupid or wrong, so I'm gonna refrain from that. But I know it's some extended capabilities plus some fixes. Probably the link is hidden in the slide, so probably later I can provide you the link to the GitHub repository, or you can simply go to the GitHub repository of IDS, and the issues are well categorized. In terms of plans for IDS, there is a plan to integrate the IDS audit tool into the validation service ecosystem. This is also something that people usually confuse. It's not IDS validation against IFC. As you know, buildingSMART does not do that, will never do that. But we have created this IDS audit tool for checking the validity of an IDS file against a schema and implementers agreement. And this is a standalone functionality that some vendors implement. And since we have a validation service website, we said, yeah, why not providing the same functionality through the website? So basically, this plan is to integrate our own tool into our ecosystem. There is a longer term plan for integrating integrating IDS with IFCX. This is something that was also demonstrated by someone from Brazil in the implementers assembly, not the last one, the one before in California. This idea of integrating IDS and BCF into the IFCX exchange mechanisms. The reason is quite simple, because IDS is an XML and can be easily rendered also as a JSON, which is at the moment the serialization format envisioned for IFCX, and similar for BCF. So it's going to be easy also in terms of API to exchange these two standards, IDS and BCF, as IFCX, using the same IFCX mechanisms. But again, this is very, very open questions. It's probably an opportunity that we are investigating. But as I said, it's a long-term plan. First, we need to focus on the core, and IDS or BCF can come later as core extensions, but definitely not part of the core. And another plan is to understand and explore the interest from the community for IDS software certification, which is a very broad title. We need to understand what this means exactly. We don't know yet. So if there's interest, for example, from someone in your community, let us know. Otherwise, we are currently and constantly talking with the vendors and users to understand the requirements for this IDS software certification. And I think this is the only one slide I have on IDS, so I'm probably going to pause for questions.
Yeah, so IDS software certification, that will typically be that you set up different IDS files to validate against different aspects of the files then.
I think from what we are hearing is at least 3 things, and we don't know exactly what people want. Probably if we ask, they're going to say that they want everything, but it's let's say the first thing is at least schema compliance. So what we are doing now with the IDS audit tool, so checking that an IDS file is a legit IDS file, so it complies to schema and implementers agreement. Basically, what the validation service does for IFC file, exactly the same thing. That's the enabler. That's the first thing. But then there's also completeness and correctness that people are interested. So completeness is, IDS provides a lot of fragments or functionalities, right? And so not every vendor is covering everything, right? So some vendors allows you to use classification as applicability and requirements. Some don't. Okay, so there are a list of features of IDS. So the first certification that people are hoping buildingSMART to do is tell me which parts of the IDS this tool is covering. So if I use this tool, am I able to create an IDS for patterns, for example, or not? So the different components of an IDS. So this is completeness. And then there is correctness or quality. So this is probably the one that you were referring to. So based on test files, we can validate or verify that a certain tool that is, say, declaring to cover certain parts of the IDS, when injected with an IFC file and an IDS that are both valid, their validation, so they are checking, when they check IDS against IFC, their outcomes are also correct. So if we inject the file that we know has 3 doors with a problem, we need to find those 3 doors highlighted by the check-in tool. So you see, it's not one thing, it's probably a combination of things. Compliance to the schema, completeness or coverage of the IDS capabilities, and then correctness or quality of the checking of IDS against IFC. And as I said, probably this is not one thing, it's a combination of things. So we need to understand how the certification process could look like.
Understand. In the future?
Yeah, in a near future, depends on how much interest there is from the community.
Maximum 10 minutes left, I would say.
Yeah, so let me, BCF is probably something that I'm going to skip. Validation and certification, I think you're interested.
That's interesting.
In this part. So the validation service is as you know, in beta phase since at April 24. We've been improving that since then. It's now in version 8.4, which includes all the features that you find online in the production version. We want to conclude the beta phase by the end of Q1 2026. So I'm hoping to make a big announcement in Porto. We're still finalizing some features. Probably we're going to do some webinar or educational content as soon as we launch 1.0. We have announced a rule freeze in December last year. So since December last year, we're not developing new rules. So this is giving vendors a clear target to follow. And since November, we are only fixing the bugs that the users and vendors are reporting on the existing rules. So the rules that you're testing now with the validation service are the ones that are going to be used by the validation service for 2026. Any new rules will have to wait for the next major release in 2027. And this is very important for software certification. Indeed, the validation service results are feeding the scorecards for software certification. Some quick numbers, quite remarkable, if you ask me, about the validation service. So in the last 18 months, in the first 18 months, 1.5 years of service of the validation service, we've been observed a substantial number of users, almost 3,000 users, active users, almost 50,000 IFC models, which is probably very remarkable, and almost 2,000 tools observed. And here I have to specify that we count each version of a tool as a different one. So here it's not really 2,000 tools, but it's 2,000 versions of tools. But even if you cut it in half, or 1/3, or even 1/5, or 1/10, it's very remarkable indeed. And also on the right, you see the month to month. So we have almost a 10 to 8 to 5% increase month to month on almost everything: files, users, and tools. So it's really starting to be, it is already statistically significant, if you ask me. The roadmap for the validation service is, as always, with buildingSMART, subject to resources and reshuffling. But this is to say, the main thing we're targeting next is the API for production and the integration of the IDS audit, as I said, as a minimum. And then we have a set of very nice things on the right, under the later column, that we would like to prioritize, but we need to understand if we have the resources for doing that. But this is what it's on the radar at the moment for the validation service.
And the scorecard is, you have a slide about the scorecards?
Yeah,
or?
I have a slide on the scorecard. So the scorecard is what we are using for the export certification. So as I said, the global IFC software certification and verification is available for all the official IFC versions, only pending the import of for the three that we believe is less problematic than export. So we prioritize the export support for the three. But in Q2, we are going to provide also the import certification for the three, and this will complete the offer of software certification. The export is done using the scorecards, and the import is done semi-automatically using some examples and tests that are provided by buildingSMART to the different software vendors.
Okay, so the official export software certification is based on scorecards, so it will be no alternative for the export. That will always be scorecards. Is
yes,
that so?
Correct. For the global IFC software certification, yes. I know that in some parts of the, like for example, in the US, they are considering also becoming a provider for the use case-based certification. So the US chapter is considering investigating the possibility of creating some specific IDS files or some specific validation criteria for their own use cases. And so once a software vendor passes the global IFC software certification at buildingSMART, they can turn it to an official provider, in this case, the US chapter, for tackling specific use cases for that region, if they're interested. So this is something that is in the roadmap. It's possible, but we haven't received any interest yet, probably only from US.
And are the scorecards available now, or
yeah.
after the Porto summit? Or?
I'm going to skip on that slide. So the scorecards are only available to implementers at the moment on request during the certification process, and the plan is to go live with the scorecards after the validation service gets out of the beta phase. So realistically, in Q2 or Q3 of this year, the scorecards, which are already working and already available and looks like this, are available to vendors. They're also going to be public. And there's also a nice feature that we have implemented, so people can look at specific tools. So like in this case, this is a demo example, but you know, there is a company, there is an application name, and it tells you how many files it's drawing the conclusions from. And but there's also another feature that instead of going per tool, you can go per functional part. So let's say that you have a project that requires georeferencing handling or assemblies. You can start from the functional parts. You can click on the assembly functional part, and then you can ask to the platform, tell me which tools support this functional part. So basically, you can get the same knowledge from either from the tool or from the functionality point of view. The platform allows you to query results from both directions.
But it's still, if you are an external user and want to investigate a software product, it's only the files that have a digital signature that is counted in the scorecard, right?
At the moment, we have this possibility. There are a few filters that allows us to populate these scorecards. So first of all, the most important is that we're not counting files coming from software vendors. So because software vendors use the validation service for debugging and implementation purposes. So we're not considering the files coming from the software vendors. We're only considering the files coming from users that most likely have access to commercial products, so no prototypes. And so real users, real projects, real files. And we check the header to make sure that the file is coming from the certain application. And then we've also implemented a so-called digital authentication feature that allows buildingSMART to verify and validate the authenticity of the file. So we can check that an IFC file that is declaring to be coming from Trimble Quadri, to use an example, is really coming from that application because there is a signature embedded in the file, and there is a public certificate in buildingSMART on the buildingSMART repository. So we are able to compare the two information and making sure that the file has not been tampered with. So people have not opened it in Notepad and started changing everything, including the name of the software. And that it's actually coming from the software that it's declared in the header. So there is this possibility, and there is also already the feature in the scorecards today only to show the results of signed file, but because the number of signed files is very little, I think only one vendor at the moment, or maybe two vendors are implementing this. If we activate this filter now, the scorecards will be empty. So there is the feature and there is the intention. This is the direction, but we need to wait for software vendors to start releasing these feature in this assigning, this authentication in their products.
Good.
And I think I've used more time than people can afford to watch a video. So I don't know if you have specific questions, but
no, it's. Do you have any headlines for what we have just jumped over? bSDD and BCF. Are there any headlines that we should be aware of?
Let me check.
You don't need to go in details there, but
no, probably only these. So there are some changes planned for next month, for the next few months on bSDD, some metadata changes. But probably the best thing is here would be to ask Arthur, because he has documentation on what these changes will be. So that's probably the header. The rest is maintenance. We're in maintenance mode. We're not really expanding things. And there is a growing use of dictionaries and APIs, but that's probably no news. And also this one, of course, bSDD plays a crucial role for the IFCX. Anything else? I think we've touched on this. BSI is working heavily with ISO and SEN on many topics. This compatibility policy, we mentioned these. The collaboration document that establishes how the processes are connected. I think we silently touched on that. And then this one is the work on IFC 4.4. And these two are the discussions that we're having with ISO and SEN for IFCX. So the core module and how to modularize things. So this is probably good to know for this group, because we haven't mentioned anything about the implementers assembly, but basically, most of the updates that you saw today are up to date with the discussion that we had with the implementers assembly in Exton in Pennsylvania last month. And the next one is in September. Excuse me, it is in September in Italy at the HACA headquarters. So if anyone is interested to join, keep an eye on this page. First of all, because you're going to see the recordings and material from the last implementer assembly, but also because as soon as there is the possibility to register for the September one, you will see the link on this page.
Very good. And you will have a lot of sessions, tech sessions in Porto, is that so?
Actually, we're going to have one big session of 1 hour in which we will cover these, but also questions and interaction from the audience. That is the main session. And then I know that there are some people presenting on IFCX or IFC5. And then there is a session in the plenary on the updates, because again, we're hoping to communicate the launch of the validation service. So there's also a component in the plenary. But I would say that no other session. Probably the other session that I would encourage people to follow is on Wednesday afternoon. There is a session on IFC for the 3 implementation challenges. So there is a infra domain, railway domain. In the morning, they are collecting all the challenges, and in the afternoon, they are meeting with the implementers forum and the technical domain and anyone that is interested to discuss how to solve some of these challenges. So this is Wednesday afternoon, and it's a joined technical domain, railway domain, infra domain session.
That sounds very interesting, indeed. Super, Evandro. A little bit longer than I planned for. But I see the recording is about 1 hour, and that's okay. The whole meeting is 1.5 hours, so we can adapt to that. Okay. Vi fremdeles våkne, vi. Dette var jo, synes jeg var veldig interessant I hvert fall. Jeg håper dere har fått en forståelse av hvor de forskjellige formatene I utviklingen. Og håper ikke stiller meg for mange spørsmål om innholdet her. Jeg tror vi skal prøve å få tak I Arthur på neste teknisk domenemøte. Så han kan fortelle litt om bSDD. Det tydelig at det skjer litt på bSDD-fronten nå. Og han også veldig involvert sammen med Evandro I teknisk arbeid I buildingSMART. Noen umiddelbare kommentarer og spørsmål. Maks 1 minutt for det, og så skal Sten slippe til. Jeg lovet han god tid. Ja, Elin?
Ja, nå har jeg skjermdumpet til den store gullmedaljen. Dette var veldig bra gjennomgang. Vi jobber jo med arkitekturmålbildet for drift og vedlikehold I Veivesenet, så å se den roadmappen eller den planen fremover, det jo veldig nyttig. Men jeg har bare et bittelite spørsmål. Det gjerne litt på siden, men det foregår noe arbeid og initiativer knyttet til å standardisere RDS. Det noe som dere fra buildingSMART side ser? Det noe IFC ikke kan løse, som RDS løser, basert på sånn dere kjenner bransjen?
Altså klassifisering, tenker du på?
Ja, objektklassifisering. De tenker jo på hierarki og systemer, og hele IFC-skjema I mitt hode da, dekker jo alle relasjoner for byggeobjekter.
Ja, IFC-skjema I seg selv, eller den semantiske delen da, for å referere til hva Evandro viste til her, jo I seg selv en klassifisering. Ja, så hvis du hadde utnyttet hele rammeverket til IFC, så hadde du egentlig ikke trengt et RDS-kodenavn. Ja, men du har romlig nedbryting I IFC, og du har også en sånn spatial aspekt I RDS, ikke sant? Hvor det I verden, og så har du et aspekt av hva det Det liksom todelt I hvert fall. Og det akkurat det samme har du for så vidt I IFC, ikke sant? Du har en romlig nedbryting, som hvor det og så har du et hva det som entities med predefined type eller object type da. Så, men IFCs liksom en modell for bygget miljø, veldig mye fokus rundt prosjektering og bygging egentlig. Kanskje ikke så mye fokus på vedlikehold, og RDS, altså merking av klassifisering av objekter, jo kanskje hovedsakelig for vedlikehold, selv om akkurat jeg hørte fra Bjørn Olav her I en annen sesjon, at Skanska også prøver å se på klassifisering, om det kan være nyttig I forbindelse med bygging, prosjektering og bygging. Ja, det jo hovedsak der det liksom litt bevegelse akkurat nå. Ja. Sten, du rakk opp hånden.
Det her det faktisk en diskussion, vi har I SEN-komiteen, som jeg arbejder I, og grunden til, at jeg I Berlin akkurat nu, det for at tage blandt andet den her diskussion, hvor IFC jo, og det jo først og fremmest en nedbrydning på en datamodel, mens RDS'en for at kunne identificere det, som vel du kalder kickable, Jan Erik, noget som fysisk, og noget som enten kan eller skal bygges, eller bygget og skal driftes og udvikles. Så det, du kan sige, de formålene med nedbrydningen, som har visse overlap, men som ikke dækker alt, de forskellige. Altså, du har 2 forskellige formål med.
Kan bare skyte en siste kommentar, at IFC har jo en klassifiseringskapabilitet, ikke sant, med IFC referent og sånn. Eller IFC classification reference. Og da kan du ha så mange klassifiseringssystemer du vil, og legge det også inn I IFC-modellen. I parallell med IFC sin egen klassifisering av sin egen modell. Det tror jeg vi sier nok nå, så Sten får god tid til sin presentasjon. Du kan jo si hvem du Sten, men det vet vel de aller fleste, så ta det derfra.
Ja, ser dere min skjerm og hører meg?
Ja.
Godt. Tak for, at jeg fik slippet til. Det er jo et arbejde, som vi har holdt på med de sidste måneder. Jan Erik har også været involveret i det. Det startede jo egentlig med for nogle år tilbage, at der er nogen, der spurgte, hvorfor vi ikke lagde en IFC for begyndere, og som sagde, at dokumentationen til buildingSMART-standarder, den var jo god og fin, men man kunne være lidt vanskelig at forstå. Så det satte i gang en tankerække, og nu er vi så endelig kommet dertil, at vi har lavet et udkast til en vejleder. Arbejdsgruppen, som har jobbet med den indtil nu, det er Frode Lund Tharaldsen, som er BIM-ekspert, og som i dag jobber i Oslo Vand og Afløbscitakt. Så det er Erik Hoel, som der jo kender her. Og så er det mig fra buildingSMART-standarder. Vi kan gerne være flere, hvis der er nogen, der føler sig kaldet til at jobbe i komiteen eller arbejdsgruppen, redaktionen, så gerne tage kontakt med mig, hvis man synes, det kunne være gør at arbejde med det her. Så hvorfor er det, vi har den? Altså, spørger du mig, så og det er jo egentlig bekræftet mange andre, så IFC burde jo egentlig være implementeret så pas på dig i programvarer, at det du egentlig bare trængte at eksportere og importere, og så gik resten af sig selv. Men slik er verden det desværre ikke. Der er forskellige implementeringer, forskellige grafiske repræsentationer, forskellige måder at behandle data på i programmernes egne databaser, som gør, at der bliver nogle forskelle. Og det gør, at der faktisk bliver et behov for egentlig selv på de mest grundlæggende krav og kunne lidt minimum af opsættet. Vi har sat en begrænsning på, hvilken vejledning vi skal give, og vi går ikke ind og giver vejledning på den specifikke programvare, og hvordan man sætter det op. Det havde kanskje været noget af det mere vellykket. Vi ser på IFC-delen, og så forhåbentlig så klæder det brugeren lidt bedre på til at tage diskussionen med programvareleverandøren og få ting gjort på den rigtige måde. Så vi håber, at det alligevel kan hjælpe folk i det praktiske arbejde. Så målgruppen, det er jo egentlig alle, som kræver og lager og benytter information. Det handler mye om at henvende sig til dem, som kanskje ikke er helt så eksperter, så dem, som er med på mødet i dag, er nok ikke den første målgruppe, men det kunne jo være, at der faktisk var et par ting, som var helt fint at få det. Ikke mindst, så kan det være fint for data, i stedet for at igen og igen skulle forklare for andre, hvordan ting fungerer, at data kan referere til den her. Så det kunne jo faktisk være, at data, som er eksperter i mødet her, også kan bruge den. Og derfor er det også lidt vigtigt, at data kanskje læser den og er enig med det, der står. Så, og der er brug for en lidt mere letlæst reference for brug for IFC, det ser vi. Så vejledningen er jo nok ment som et opslagsværk. Vi forventer ikke, at den bliver læst som en roman eller novelle. Den er på 35 sider på nuværende tidspunkt, og jeg ser for mig, at den etter hvert kan blive ganske omfattende, når vi får nye idéer til, hvad der kan være med. Så mere et opslagsværk end at læse fra ende til ende. Hvis der læser den her, så vil jeg bare gøre opmærksom på, at der også er planer om at lave en kan man sige, sådan BIM for begyndere, som ser lidt mere på sammenhandlinger i både projekt og FDV, og hvordan det fungerer sammen med de andre buildingSMART-standarder og tjenester, og ser måske også lidt mere sådan på værdiskarpingen, altså hvad er det for en brugstilfælde, for eksempel, som burde lidt være minimum i alle projekter, og hvordan lykkes man med det. Vi har også set på, der er også tanker om at lave sådan en påfin for begyndere, en vældig indledende arbejde, eller det kan godt være, den hedder ISO 19650 for begyndere, men handler jo egentlig om, hvordan man så organiserer arbejdet, aftaleværket, og hvem skal gøre hvad, og rækkefølger, og så ansvar og roller osv., som jo egentlig er det, som påfin tager for sig. Det er nok ikke helt mange, der forstår. Nogen tror, at påfin er ment at løse alt, og så bliver de kanskje skuffet. fordi den netop ikke løser alt, men den løser noget vigtigt. Så derfor, der kommer antageligvis nogle flere vejledere etter hvert, og derfor den IFC-vejleder, den skal ikke løse alt. Den fokuserer på IFC. Så, og vi mener også, at der er nok at tage tag i der. Dagens udkast, den er på 35 sider. I tillæg til de vejledere, som er ment at komme, så er der selvfølgelig også dokumentationen fra buildingSMART International. Nuværende version er jo i C4.3, og den har jeg en linke til i præsentationen her. Så den her, den er jo kræver kanskje lidt øvelse i at forstå, så det er nok derfor, vi ser et behov for at have lavet noget mere end bare denne dokumentation. Som her. Så hvad er det, vi tror, og hvordan er vejlederen bygget op? Hvad er det for nogle behov, som en såkaldt begynder har? Og en ting er at forklare, hvad IFC er, og så også lidt sådan, hvordan det er bygget op. Vi har en del, som siger noget om, hvordan IFC skal brygges, og så har vi nogle praktiske afvejninger, som er en anden måde at sige, at der er nogle kendte udfordringer med IFC, og prøve at se lidt på det. Men den liste kan jo selvfølgelig blive vældig lang, og det bliver den kanskje også. Og det kan kanskje være bra, at vi har et sted at have en neutral diskussion og sige lidt pros and cons for forskellige praksis. I går fik jeg en idé, som kunne være, at vi faktisk også giver noget vejledning til, hvordan man skal læse netop den her dokumentation her, som kan gøre det enklere på i nogen grad overflødiggøre, kan man sige, behovet for at have en slik vejleder. Det var også bare en idé, jeg fik i går, og derfor kommer den ikke med i nuværende udkast til vejlederen, og det er noget, vi kanskje, hvis de andre i redaktionen synes, det kan være en god idé, som vi kan se lidt videre på. Så i det efterfølgende her, der kommer jeg bare til at meget sådan på teaser-mæssigt, jeg har jo ikke så meget tid, gå over nogle af de temaer, som er nævnt. Det er ikke ydt-termene. Der er flere ting, som er vist i vejlederen. Og siderne her viser selvfølgelig heller ikke alt det, som står. Men noget, vi selvfølgelig har med, er rummelig nedbrydning. Det er jo noget, som kan være fint at have. Mange ikke helt forstår, hvad er, og hvordan man skal rykke, og den slags. Og så ser vi, der er jo forskellige på byg og infrastruktur, så derfor er der nok også behov for, nok endda især på infrastruktur, at se lidt på, hvordan det fungerer, hvordan det fungerer der. Så den kan man læse noget mere om, også hvordan der er relationer. I det tilfælde her, så kan det være en væg, som sidder i en etage, og som har sidder ved siden af et space, og i den væg så er der en åbning, og i åbningen sidder der et vindue. Alt sammen knyttet sammen i relationer, og spacen, den har også en relation til building story. Så at forstå, at det her det er en ret vigtig komponent i IFC at have disse relationer. Og at der er forskellige typer relationer, det vi kalder fysisk, logisk og funktionelt. Hvordan man knytter information og materialer til objekter. Der er forskellige måder at gøre det på. Det er også forklaret. Lidt om udvekslingen. Det er jo meget grundlæggende, så man ligesom forstår, at der er jo en IFC-oversætter i en programvare, som kan både læse og skrive til IFC. Og det er jo den, som gør, og den lægger faktisk noget information på og strukturerer informationen på en standardiseret måde. Og så er der sådan lidt en gang med nogle udfordringer med, at sådan noget som GUID'en ikke er permanent og så videre, med opdatering af modeller og den slags, som også kan skabe lidt trøbbel. Men i hvert fald bare har en forklaring af, hvad der faktisk sker. Og det er jo selvfølgelig ikke noget, som det løber på, men kanskje hvis man er nybegynder, så er det det. Nulpunkt og georeferering, koordinatsystem, det at forstå, hvordan man arbejder med positionering i forhold til den virkelige verden, det er selvfølgelig vigtigt. Og hvad er det, der sker, når man i modellen, det er også forklaret her. Og igen, jeg tror ikke, der er nogen af data, som lyder på det, men det kan være fint for data at have en enkelt reference at vise til. Ikke definerede egenskaber, det her, det er jo vældig meget det samme, som også står i OT360, NS OT360 del 1, men kan være fint at få med her også. Databog er der et afsnit på. Det er ikke noget, vi går så meget i dybden på, men gør opmærksom på, hvad det bruges til, og hvad kan bruges til, og hvad det er. Og en visning til buildingSMART-databog, som kan man sige, den overordnede reference mellem databøger. Så lidt om geometrisk repræsentation, at der findes forskellige måder at udtrykke geometri på, og det at man faktisk også har forskellige geometri kan også være en udfordring. Lidt forklaring af det. Og så kommer vi ned på de her lidt sager, som lidt forskellige forhold, som det med kendte faldgruber. Og en af dem er jo den her tendens, vi ser, at vældig mange både rådgiver og også entreprenører har lavet sine egne standardiserede egenskabssæt. Arkitektbedrifterne har blandt andet gjort det. Lavet forslag. Det er det, man ser i tabellens venstre kolonne, som er indekseret det, og som går altså lidt på tværs af IFC-standarden. Og vi ser lidt på, så hvordan vil det så se ud, hvis informationen lå brugte de IFC-egenskaber, der findes, brugtes de NS 360 standardiserede egenskaber, der fandtes, og så fandt vi et par stykker, som ikke fandtes, og der kan man lave nogen for arkitektbedrifterne selv. Figuren til venstre siger kanskje lidt om der er lidt kanskje to lejre, dem der gerne vil arbejde med egendefinerede egenskabssæt, fordi det forenkler kommunikationen kanskje mellem rådgiver og en underleverandør. Samtidig så er der en risiko for, at dem som ser lidt mere på bestillingen og forvaltningen og de lange løb, at de får en information, som kan være vanskelig at genfinde og genbruge i en anden sammenhæng. Og spørgsmålet er, om vi skulle prøve at finde nogle løsninger, som tilgodeser begge dele. Når man stadig kan benytte IFC-strukturer, så kan man vise egenskaber i nogle egendefinerede visninger, i stedet for at man hardcoder det. Det er jo i hvert fald en diskussion, som jeg synes, vi skal have. Den er i hvert fald taget med her, bare for at sparke til websymbolet med en gang. Så der er nogle andre kendte faldgrupper. De er bare listet op her. De er lidt kortere beskrevet, jeg har egentlig ikke tænkt mig at gå så meget igennem den. Det er jo mest ment som en teaser på selve vejledningen. Så og hvis man lurer på, hvor man kan få tag i det, den ligger på vores hjemmeside. Man kan laste ned høringsdokumentet sammen med et kommentarskema. Det ligger bare på vores hjemmeside, og så går man under, der er en fane, der hedder standarder, og så ligger der dokumenter til høring, og så er det den, der ligger der. Det vi vil gerne have indspil på, det er selvfølgelig, hvis der ser noget, der mener er fejl. Noget, som for så vidt er rigtigt, men som er formuleret på en måde, som ikke som kan misforstås, hvis der savner noget. Og også hvis der synes, at det her blev enten for kronglende, der er vanskeligt, eller det her blev for forenklet, at vi har kyttet vigtig information væk for at gøre det forståeligt, så er det også fint at få det. Så fristen for høringsindspil er over halvanden måned til, så der burde være tid til, på trods af påske og så videre, og få sat sig ned, kanskje en gruppe i sin bedrift, eller sammen med andre kolleger, og gå igennem og komme med nogle indspil. Så vi vil meget gerne have, at man bruger det skema, som ligger ved. Man laster en zip-fil ned, og der ligger selve dokumentet, og så vil vi gerne have, at man udfylder. For vi vil gerne vide, hvem er det, som stiller forslag, hvor i vejlederen er det, man kommenterer på, lave en konkret forslag til en ny tekst, således at vi ikke skal gætte på, hvad var egentlig meningen, og hvorfor har man ændret det, hvad er det, man mener, som er fejl. Det behøver ikke være så omfattende det. Der er nogen, der mener, at det er lidt tungvindt, men desværre erfaringen er, at hvis man ikke gør det på en god, sporbar måde og med konkrete forslag, så er der en stor risiko for, at indspillet ikke bliver forstået, og så kommer det faktisk ikke med i vejledningen videre. Så det er altså noget, vi opfordrer til, at man benytter det her skema. Og så er det jo ikke sådan, at vi forventer, at alle er eksperter, så eftersom det her det er en vejleder for dummies, ikke for dummies, for begyndere, så meget gerne få kommentarer og indspil fra folk, som netop ikke forstår alt. Og det gælder selvfølgelig ikke det, men der har kanskje nogle kolleger, som ikke ved helt det samme som det, og der kan gerne teste den her vejleder på dem og sige, giver det her mening? Det vil vi være veldig glade for, hvis det vil hjælpe med. Vi skal sende nyhedsark ud snart om det her, og invitere alle medlemmer på høringen. Men der er det de første, som får det at vide. Høringen er formelt åbnet i dag. Og grund det her dummies, grund til, at vi ikke brugte IFC for dummies, det er jo selvfølgelig, at enhver, som interesserer sig for IFC, er natursmart. Men der er selvfølgelig forskellige niveauer på kompetencer. Så hvordan vi har tænkt os at udgive det, altså først og fremmest så bliver det jo nok bare en blække i et PDF-format, man kan laste ned og bladre rundt i. Men Torkel Strejf fra buildingSMART har altså også en idé om at lave en digital version, som er lidt mere dynamisk, som man kan læse, og kanskje den kan være lidt niveaudelt, afhængig af om man er begynder, øvet eller superbrygger nu. Den del, der er nu, det er nok mere sådan på begynder/øvet, og der er nok ikke så meget superbrygger nu, og kanskje slet det aldrig bliver det, fordi der har man dokumentation fra buildingSMART. Men det er i hvert fald også lidt afhængigt af, hvor mange kommentarer vi får, og hvad som kommenteres, og så videre. Det værd, så ser vi for os også, at det kan blive et lidt levende dokument, som opdateres kanskje en gang i året, hver andet år, med ny viden og erfaringer, og selvfølgelig især, hvad der sker, når der kommer nye versioner af IFC. Det er jo spændende, og forventer jo især, at IFC 5 eller IFC X kommer til at betyde ganske mye. Kanskje det betyder, at det bliver overflødiggjort. Det kommer jeg så næsten håbe. Så jeg tror, jeg holdt mig inden for tiden. Erik, tak for anledningen til at fortælle om det arbejde, som vi i hvert fald er kommet til et høringsversion på.
Veldig
så
bra.
Mange af jer vil deltage.
Ja, veldig bra, Steen. Du holdt det helt fint innenfor tiden. Noen kommentarer, spørsmål til det Steen akkurat sa? Nei, da har vi bare ett punkt igjen, og det er eventuelt. Og da det første punktet her buildingSMART Norge-konferansen 15. april på Clarion Hotel. Når du her, Steen, du vil kanskje si 2 ord om det, markedsføre det?
Gerne det. Vi har jo en knakkende dygtig programkomité, som har sat sammen en buket af vældig spændende og interessante foredrag, som både går på, kan man sige, vældig overordnede strategiske behov, som er første delen, ser på også hvordan man så leverer, og hvordan man benytter IFC og BIM. Så vi har lidt kronologi i et livsløb, og så slutter vi af med nogle interessante indspil også, både om gamification og også et bryg på digitalisering for genopbygning i Ukraine, så vi får et lidt mere sådan et løfterblikket til på slutten. Så vi tror, at det her bliver en buket af vældig fagnyttig og også super interessant. Så holder vi det et nyt sted. Vi fik lidt kritik på lokalet i fjor, så vi holder til i Bjørvika på Clarion Hotel Oslo. Så håber vi, at vi får lidt bedre plads og bedre luft og bedre lunch, så det ligger til rette for, at vi får en knaldbedre dag. Så sæt der tiden, og håber vi ses.
Masse hjernefyll og masse magefyll. Det høres ut som en bra kombi. Neste reklameinnslag høydepunktene I løpet av året. Det tekniske domenemøtene. Det 3 møter til I år som vi har planlagt fra samme tid, fra 10 til halv 12, for jeg har funnet ut det ganske gunstig tidspunkt. Og det rett før sommeren, 2. juni, og så det ut på høsten 6. oktober, og så det rett før jul 8.12. Dere tror de fleste på callen her har fått en foreløpig invitasjon, og så lager vi agenda når møtene nærmer seg. Og så sendte jeg også på chatten her et par linker til Marcin, som jobbet hos oss I Trimble før, som en IFC-ekspert. Han har nå begynt et annet firma, og så jobber litt for seg selv, så han har hatt et veldig bra IFC for infrastruktur-webinar, som jeg har lagt link til der. Det en YouTube-sak som dere bare kan gå inn og se på, bare 1,5 time eller noe sånt. Ganske fyldig, bra sak, hvis dere ønsker en gjennomgang av IFC brukt infrastruktur. Og han har også satt opp et kurs altså det noe som heter BIM Corner, som dere bør følge med på hvis dere ikke gjør det, med mye nyttig BIM-informasjon, eller IFC-informasjon. Det blant annet Arthur, som vi har snakket om flere ganger her I dag, også med der. Og der det en link til et kurs som han planlegger å holde nå, om ikke så lenge som de kan melde dere på. Det det. Vet ikke om noen har en eller annen spørsmål, kommentar før vi avslutter. Nei, virker ikke sånn. Da vi faktisk ferdig 3 minutter før tiden. Det ikke gærent. Da blir det fin pause før neste møte som begynner om 3 minutter for sikkert mange. Takk for nå da, og så ses vi I hvert fall 2. juni på neste Tech-domenemøte. Ha det bra.
Ha det.